Now here's something that you might not have seen before. This is a linesman's telephone. Now in the US this would be known as a lineman's telephone. The reason I mention that is because you might have heard the Glenn Campbell song Wichita Lineman. It's about a guy using one of these because he is the chap that would climb up a telephone pole with one of these and plug it in to test the line, and that's what this device is for. Now I'll just open it up so you can have a look at it. You can see I've got a camera up here. Hopefully that sort of does a close-up at the same time. If not, I'll just cut the footage in. But you can see inside here, hopefully, well actually first thing I'll do, I'll get this piece of paper out because I bought this online from eBay as usual, and it's an ex-military device, this one, although of course generally they weren't military items. It's just that's how I've come across this one. These would have been used by the telephone company to test the lines, but this one is ex-RAF Lucas in Fife. It's near to St Andrews golf course, just the other side of the river. But that base there, Lucas, they changed from the RAF to the Army. They just swapped over, probably around about the time they got rid of this. So I think this is ex-RAF, but you know, it could be Army as well. Maybe they brought it with them, realised they didn't want it. Because it dates back to 2014, this. It looks like something from sort of World War II, doesn't it? But that's when they decommissioned it. So this is from eBay via the Army Air Force. And the idea with this is you've got your telephone receiver here, you've got your dialer here, and what you would do, I think I've got a cable, there we go, at least I think this is what you do, not that I've ever done it. You climb up a telephone pole, plug in your crocodile clips, clip them onto the line, and then you could ring back to the base here, to the operator or whatever, and say, is the line working? Then you could maybe say you were outside a house, and someone says there's something wrong with the line, where you go and test it, see if you could connect through to the exchange and then back to the location, etc. And it's basically just a telephone, but one that you can very easily plug into an existing set of lines. Now the military have their own team of linesmen whose job it is to maintain the infrastructure, whether it's electricity lines or phone lines, so they would use something like this. So when I think about it, it's probably more likely that this has come from the Army than the Air Force. It was just being stored at an Air Force base. Now this particular one costs me about £30, and I've got to say the case on it, it looks like it's metal. It isn't, it's plastic. In fact, there's a little bit of a crack up here on this one, and it looks, as I mentioned, like something from the Second World War perhaps, or just after, but it isn't. This is from, I think, 1979 or later, because I found the instructions online for this particular model, which is a Pi TMC 1705, and those were dated to 1979, so more than likely this is from the 1980s or maybe even the 90s. The reason that I got this, I mean, it's an interesting looking device, kind of thing that you could perhaps have in a man cave or just sort of a shed or just on display. Not really the kind of thing you want too much just in a normal house, but you could, with an adapter, connect one of these up to a normal phone line and use it as a telephone, just as standard. So we've got the dialer here. We've got the little bits here where the phone hangs up on, and there's also on this one a push to talk button. Just because of the way that they were using these, they'd hold this down and just check there was anyone on the line, and well, maybe don't hold it down, then hold it down if there was no one on the line, so you could talk. So they could actually just sort of listen in on the phone calls, which I think is part of the Glenn Campbell song, but I'm not all that familiar with it. Now, what I will show you here, of course, we've got the receiver, as we can see. We've got the bits that I connected the crocodile clip to before. There is a headphone or earphone output there. And then there's another couple of clips there. I think that might be for an external battery, I'm not too sure. And then we've got a switch here that says CB, LB and ring. Of course, ring, you would slide it into that position and it would ring the other end of the line. LB is like local battery. It might not stand for that, but that's what I associate it with, because in this machine you can insert 3 D-cell batteries in the end, because of course you need some power to be able to make a phone ring at the other end. You need a, I mean, there is power on the lines, but that's where the CB comes from. That's I suppose central battery. That's with the power on the line. So what this means is that this device can power the connection. So what makes this interesting isn't when you've just got one of these is when you've got two of them, because with two of these you can then create your own retro intercom. Now, I know people would say, well, why don't you just use a mobile phone to talk to someone? And then you could, and it would be a lot easier and cheaper, but this is just a bit of fun, that's all. The idea with this is, I was thinking that somebody could have one of these in a shed down the bottom of the garden, in a workshop, a man cave, whatever you call them, and then the person in the house could say, ring them up and say, oh, your tea's ready in 5 minutes, or there's somebody at the door, or whatever, those kind of things. Just like you'd shout down the, to the other end of the garden. But with this, you do it through one of these. So what you do is you connect two of these together using those connectors I mentioned before. Now, I'll just have a look at the document in this, because this is another one. This dates back to 2010. Prepared for movement off station. So yeah, all that's Sergeant Miller, it looks like, did that. So yeah, I'm just going to take the cover off one of these and do a bit of a close-up just to show you what the inside of this looks like. And then I'll come back, and what I'll do is, I've got some bell wire here, and I'm just going to connect it between the terminals on both of these and just show you how that works. So let's have a look at that in a second. So of course, with this not being a consumer device, instead it's something that would be used solely by engineers. It's designed to be easy to take apart, and also everything in here is laid out nice and neatly so that any components that were not functioning properly could be swapped out relatively simply. This is a dialer, of course. Rotary dialers always fascinate me, the way that they work. So for those that don't know, you turn it around to the number that you require, and then the little plastic peg flips over and taps pulses out on the metal connector on the left hand side. So let's just have a look at that again. It'll flip over and then tap it out, a little bit like a finger tapping Morse code. And of course it sends those pulses then down the line. It has to send regular pulses, so on the right hand side through that hole there you'll see a regulator which keeps those pulses spaced out evenly. It does that by sort of like having a little fan on it almost, so that it can't go too fast, just the same speed every time. As far as the ringer goes, well, it's this thing here. It's this metal bar on these electromagnets, and when the pulse is sent down from the other end, that vibrates and creates a noise because it hits up against that metal pole on the right hand side there. You might just be able to make out that it's moving. And then if this one wants to ring the other end, well, it's a matter of pushing the switch into the appropriate position, which then does the same thing by sending the pulses down to the ringer unit on the other end. All quite rudimentary, but it works, so the design remained unchanged for decades. Right, okay, I've got them wired up now. Very simple. Just put a piece of wire between them, and of course make the wire whatever length you want, I suppose within reason. But yeah, you could, I think it's 25 meters or something of wire there. So yeah, by moving it into the ring position, say ring, it's kind of like a kind of buzzing sound. I'm wondering if the army versions of these had a different sound on them to a normal version that someone would use from a phone company, because you don't want the bell ringing out if you're trying to be discreet. Or maybe they all sounded like this, just don't know. These are the ones I've got, but yeah, that rings out. That rings out. So then this person, oops, these lids are a little bit prone to fall, and you could take the straps off, I suppose. But yes, yeah, so this person could ring that person. They'd pick it up. And then by pressing this button, I can talk to them. Now what I'll do is I'll just put my microphone over on that side so you can hear my audio coming through. Okay, so I've just taped my microphone to the receiver now, and I'll just pop this on the top. And now hopefully you should be able to hear me through the telephone, or through the receiver. So yeah, obviously you know how a telephone works, but that's it really. But it's just an interesting idea having this as an intercom, as a two-way system, a kind of retro intercom. I was obsessed with intercoms as a kid. I used to set them up over the house. I mean, we're talking sort of 1970s here. You could ring up from the kitchen to bedroom and things. Must have driven my parents mad. Okay, now as demos go, that last one really wasn't very good because you could hear my voice coming over the microphone and via the receiver handset. So this time I'm stood, as you can see, outside. You're on the inside of the house, and the only way you can hear me is via the handset. So there you go, that's what the sound quality is like. Let's get on with the rest of it. Now, I'll just mention something about this CB and LB on here, the local battery. I believe if you leave it in the LB connection, that will slowly wear the battery down, even if you're not using it. That's what I read on these online forums where they were talking about these devices. So if you were using this as an intercom to a shed or whatever, when it wasn't in use, you'd want to put it into that CB position, which meant that the battery wasn't connected. Now, the thing with that, of course, you have to remember to switch it back on again afterwards. But that's the only thing that I think is a bit of a drawback to using one of these. And if you were just to put batteries in one of these devices, that one could then ring the other one, and you could have a proper two-way conversation, no problems. But the one without the batteries would be unable to ring the other device, so the calls would really have to be initiated by the person with the batteries, or unless you've just agreed to pick up the receiver at the exact same time or something. So yeah, that's it really. I'll put links to the place where I got these from in the video description text box on eBay. I'll say they have plenty of these for sale. It's just a fun little item, a little bit of history, and gotta say, it's a long time since I used one of these rotary phones, and takes you right back that, the colour even, right back to the 1970s. But anyway, there you go. Hope you've enjoyed that one. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.